Laws of dyeing. The prohibition of dyeing clothing and other objects. Biblically, there is only a biblical prohibition involved when dyeing with a permanent dye. However, a dye which will not last at all, such as one who placed vermilion, rouge, a metal, copper, and thus dyeing it, is not liable because one is only coloring it temporarily and not dyeing it anything. Rabbinically, however, it's prohibited. Dyeing foods, one is permitted to place turmeric in food. There's no need to worry that it is coloring, as one's not. There's no coloring purpose in dyeing food. Getting pigment on one's bread. If one dyes his bread with pigment of fruits, such as strawberries and pomegranates, there's no problem involved. Wiping stained hands on a cloth. As explained in Halacha 1, dyeing clothing contains a biblical prohibition when done with a permanent dye, and a rabbinical prohibition when done with a temporary dye. The following law will discuss if one may wipe his colored hands on a cloth in order to clean them, having no intent at all to dye the cloth in doing so. First opinion says one who eats strawberries or other fruits which have dyeing pigment needs to be careful to not touch with his stained hands his clothing or cloth due to the prohibition of dyeing. Now, although when doing so, one has no actual intent to ruin the cloth, thus whenever one does an action on Shabbos in a way of damaging, he has not biblically transgressed. Nevertheless, it is forbidden to be done rabbinically. Other opinions state that there are those which are lenient, being that it is only a form of dirtying and thus is not considered to be dyeing. Final opinion, one is to be stringent, and certainly when one wipes on a red cloth, of which is not considered to be damaging the cloth at all. Clothes that are designated specifically for wiping on, or cloths rather, may be used for wiping one's colored hands and is not a problem of dyeing, as we only say a problem of dyeing when it is not in a way of wiping, or it is but is done to a random cloth. May one use a tissue or disposable napkin to wipe his stained hands? Yes. Treating bleeding wound on Shabbos. It's forbidden to place a garment on a wound that is bleeding, because the blood will dye it. Now, although one is ruining, nevertheless, rabbinically it is forbidden. It is certainly prohibited on a red garment, being that it's fixing it. It is not allowed for one to squeeze out the blood from the wound prior, as doing so contains the wounding prohibition. Thus, how is one to treat bleeding wound? One is to wrap around it spider webs and cover it, all the blood, an entire wound, afterwards wrap a rag around it. Other opinions say it's nish good because it's making healing. Rather, one is to rinse in water or wine in order to remove the blood. Afterwards, you may wrap a rag around it. Finally, it's proper to suspect for this later opinion, although the Halacha follows the first opinion. May be used. Cloths that are designated specifically for wiping on may be used for wiping blood, and is not a problem of dyeing, as we only apply dyeing prohibition when it is not a way of wiping, or it is but does to a random cloth. May a bandage be used over a bleeding wound? Yes. May one place a tissue or a disposable napkin on the wound? Yes. May one wrap a towel over a bleeding wound? Seemingly, one may not do so, as the towels are not meant to be used to dry colored liquids, but rather to dry water on. Drying one's skin with pigment. There are no problems involved at all in dirtying one's hands and face with pigment of the food that he is eating, as coloring prohibition only applies towards an item which is commonly dyed. Applying makeup, it was prohibited for the woman to apply makeup on her face due to the coloring prohibition. Due to that, this is the commonly done on women. As well, to apply eyeliner was prohibited, whether for a man or a woman, due to coloring prohibition. Making dye on Shabbos is obviously forbidden, such as soaking pigment in water. May one use Q-tips on Shabbos? Yes.